Amazing. So, welcome everybody to the live stream. Hope this is working. Tells me my stream health is poor, but here we are. So, thanks for joining me, and I look forward to more of these, and hopefully they will go smoother. But so far, let me get us started. So, amazing. So, okay, let me turn off that. Okay. We don't want echoes. Okay, great. So, let's get started. So, I'm Luna Munoz Santifanti, and nice to meet you all. I think I've been talking to you on the LinkedIn stratosphere, so welcome to this live stream. I'm going to talk to you today about the biggest pitfalls in pivoting your career from academia into whatever you happen to want to do next. So I just made a little note of things I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about 6 things that are really important. Maybe I'll get to a 7th one tonight. Hi, Simon, and Paulina, thank you. Nice to see you guys. Oh, it says my stream health is excellent. Yay, I'm so glad. Okay, so yes, I'm Luna, and so I'm American. I did my PhD in the US, and then I came to Europe to do a postdoc, and then came to the UK. Got a tenured position, basically an associate professor, senior lecturer, permanent post. And the more that I did to make my job something that made my life more meaningful, so I did a lot of kind of volunteering to do equality, diversity, inclusion work. I do a lot of mentoring, set up coaching programs within the university system, changed jobs, went to a Russell Group university, like a red brick university, one of the old ones, then I was also in a post-92 university. And anywhere I went, it was basically the same as what I was trying to avoid in the academic system in the US. And I just realized that the things that really mattered to me in my job weren't things that were valued by, the people up top, the deans, the pro-vice chancellors, all the things that really mattered to me that I felt I was doing good, and the students and the community really appreciated weren't things that were going to get me promoted. I was knocked back twice. And I just, even though I'd had like a research prize and, publications, it just, the hurdle always got bigger. It just was like, no, you need to do this other extra thing. So I left last year, and now I'm a career coach. Also do consultancy, do education consultancy and equality, diversity consultancy and research consultancy. So anything that I used to do in academia, I now do as freelance, and now people pay me to do these things instead of it being on my free time. So now I just want to help you guys, because a lot of what I had when I left was about mindset issues. I felt guilty for leaving. I felt ashamed. I was telling someone earlier today, I felt like my supervisor from my PhD was going to be like, well, Luna just blew it. All my other graduate students are now professors and making it, and she didn't make it. Those were the kind of stories and narratives that were rolling in my head. And I think that stopped me from being able to make a clear direction in a forward vision, purposeful future because of that, because of the kind of anger and guilt and shame and, kind of ego as well, just kind of feeling that fragile self of like, this was all my self-worth, and now what am I if I'm not in this? And what did I get a PhD for? Was that all lost time? So if you're feeling like that, or if you're not feeling like that, some of these tips might be useful for you. So the first one I'm going to get to is getting more degrees. So I've heard a lot, and some of my clients, some of my colleagues who want to leave academia talk to me about, I just need this, I might need this certificate, or I'm just going to get another doctorate or another master's degree, and then I'll be able to pivot and make a clear direction in another field. And for me, I don't know about you, but I still have student loan debt, because I did my PhD in America. And so I still have a lot of student loan debt. So for me, when I left, the prospect of doing another degree, even the time, do you know what I mean? There's the time commitment, and then the cost commitment was a lot for me to deal with. And, to be honest, I felt like I'd gotten a lot of experiences in academia that I felt like doing another degree or certification was just something I didn't need. I didn't feel like I needed those skills. Now, obviously, if you're going into something like law, you need a degree for that. If you're going into counseling or therapy or something like this, then you need to look into whether a degree would be useful for you. And obviously, if it takes, having a degree is going to give you qualifications that's going to make you an ethical, person in terms of your practice, then of course, you want to be competent. But I think sometimes degrees can be another form of gatekeeping that has already been perpetuated in the academy. And I didn't want to see that again. And so, for me, it was something that I really had to do some soul searching. Why do I feel like I need a degree? Also, do some soul searching. Do you feel like you need a degree to feel worth something? Have those kind of curiosity about why you might feel like you need that. Does that also give me like a line to a particular job that I don't want to be kind of floundering on my own and figuring out my own path? I want something where you get this degree, you get this job. There's like a 1-to-1 correlation between the two. Is it just that fear of uncertainty? Have a conversation with yourself about whether it's that I need to feel like valid in going for this job, whether I feel like I need a clear direction without any uncertainty and I'm afraid. So it's about those kinds of conversations with yourself. And, I think because that will stop you from going ahead. If you're having that kind of mentality, there are other mental blocks that you're going to be experiencing along the way. And you don't want to, go into a new industry with regret. So that's getting more degrees. And also, I think just the idea that, the kind of capitalistic idea that, you go and you get degrees and you can enter the industry at a higher level, right? And that's just the way it is. But there are a lot of people who don't do that, and they're, running Facebook or, who make money in very different ways without all those degrees. So again, just have a conversation with yourself. Number 2, starting a side business, or what I like to call a side gig. I think there are valuable things to starting a side business. My colleague has Dr. Survival, so that's her side business, consultancy. And her job, her academic job, allows her to have, 1-2 days a week to devote to that because it creates impact for the university as well. You can also look to see whether you can get business training within the university. So, for example, one of the universities that I used to work at, I did my kind of education degree. It's a postgraduate certificate in teaching and learning in higher education. So because I did a degree there back when I first started my lecturer position, they actually offer an alumni association business support. So maybe you could look to see whether those things are available within your, your university. Maybe they have LinkedIn certificates or, learning marketing perhaps within your university, which would help you in trying to build a business in consultancy or whatever you're planning to do. So there is value to doing a side business. However, I do have it could be a pitfall because starting a side gig requires a lot of work. Now that I've built my own business in consultancy, I realize there's a lot of marketing that I needed to learn. There was a lot about market research that I needed to learn. So all of my research skills are still being used, which is great because I thought I was going to miss that. But actually, the market research has made me feel like I'm being challenged and I'm learning new things. So you need to do that. You need to network hard and build a big network around you. You need to do a lot of networking to get your name out there so that you can get those consultancy bids into your business. There's a lot of work that goes into it that if you're starting a side business thinking that, oh, I'll just shift into that at some future point, it could be that it's not taking off and you are evaluating its productivity based on, the fact that it hasn't really gotten the soil and all of the nutrients and all of the attention to be able to grow. So it really does require a lot of attention to be able to grow to that point where you can make it into a successful business that you would shift into. Without that, you might come to the conclusion that nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted my side business, when actually they would have liked that. So I think it just does a disservice to it, and you're doing a disservice to other people if you can provide such a big help to other people and their trajectories or what they need you can provide, then staying in the job that you're at until you can shift into that is really not giving as much as you have to contribute to the world. So that's my grand statement for you. You are holding back something really valuable that you could be giving to somebody. So a side gig is useful in that it allows you to try out something. Do I even like doing this? So I think that's one useful thing to do. Like I said, you can get started on it, but I think at some point you need to make a choice. You need to make a commitment and a decision in one way. And a decision is a really powerful place to be in, because I've heard from so many people saying, I felt like I was on autopilot within the academic system, right? I mean, like I told you my trajectory. I did a PhD. Then my professor said, oh, I know this guy who can give, who's doing has a postdoc available. And I know this other guy who has a postdoc available. So I just kind of fell into those. And then I fell into a lecturer job, because that's what you do. You go for assistant professor jobs or lecturer jobs. So I fell into that. And then I fell into, what's the next thing? Senior lecturer. I never took a moment and a pause and observed what was going on for me. Is this the path that I want? Is this making me happy? Is this making me feel fulfilled? Is this a meaningful stage in my career? Or, is there something else I want to do? I never took those moments. So I think it's really important if you can take a moment to really decide what place you want to go in. And making a choice is a yes, right? It's a I choose this, I say yes to this, rather than falling into things where you've not really chosen for yourself. And again, if you're not feeling that joy, if you take stock and have like a kind of board meeting with yourself, how is this all working for me? And it's not working. It's like a relationship, and you have a romantic relationship. Is this working for me? If it's not working for you and you're not happy, then why are you continuing to stay? Right? So at that point, I think make an enthusiastic yes choice towards a side business if you find something that you really enjoy. Okay, number 3 is just waiting, right? So people say, well, I'm just going to wait till I get tenure, or I'm going to wait for promotion, or I'm going to wait till I have enough money. Okay, if you're just waiting without, again, a plan to how you're going to leave and whether waiting and having that tenure is actually worthwhile for the next business venture that you have, then why are you waiting? Again, the waiting might be because you're afraid of uncertainty, right? Waiting and staying in a place where you're like, this is a stable job, there's flexibility, I have good pay. That's just being afraid of the unknown, right? And is it really stable? Is it really flexible? Or is that just you get to work your 80 hours whenever you'd like to work them? You're welcome. I think you really need to, again, have a conversation. What is stopping me? Because it might be true. It might be that you do have to wait, and you might have a plan. You might have, okay, I need this much money to be able to leave academia so that I can support myself. And I'm going to put away, $100 a month or £100 a month, and that'll get me to a stage in 12 months' time. But I want you to stop and reverse engineer where you want to be in a year's time so that you are making a conscious choice to commit to your priorities and what's going to make you happy. So waiting just for waiting's sake because it feels like the certain stable place to be. Again, be curious about where your mind is around those issues. And also, I would be honest with you, waiting for tenure or promotion might be useful. So one of the jobs that I went for was for Rand Europe, and it was for a director level position. And they told me I was number 7 they were interviewing the top 6. I was number 7. So I was pretty high up there because I was an associate professor, senior lecturer, to have a tenured position. But B, I was deputy director of postgraduate research and then deputy director of research in clinical psychology. Those types of titles served well when I was looking for director level positions in industry or in, the third sector. So it does work. And the people that were shortlisted for that, I know, were deans of school and vice chancellors. So yes, there is some truth to having a title or tenure or promotion at that level. So yeah, I'll be honest with you, you might need to do that if you're looking at those director positions. But equally, you could go for an associate director or deputy director position within those organizations that you want to go into, and you could work your way up. So you don't need to stay in a miserable place if you're being exploited. I say take control. And when you exit and you go into those industries, even at an associate director level or a managerial level, or even at, a kind of senior data analyst or something like this, you're going to meet a lot of different people. You're going to meet people even in, other private sectors who might say to you, hey, come work for us. We've been working together as, because we're a stakeholder of your organization, but we really like your work. Can you consider? So one of my colleagues that just happened to, so she's now moving into a private industry in UX, user experience, because she'd worked for the civil service and had, worked with those stakeholders. So that's also a possibility. So you don't have to stay to get into that, dean level, which again, for women of color or for women, they're going to hit that kind of glass ceiling, which is something that, like I said, I experienced before. Great comment. Some people think that only academic jobs are meaningful. I'm finding it challenging to transition outside academia. The non-academic sector does not seem open to people wishing to step outside academia. I'm a lawyer by training, specialized in EU law and based in the Netherlands. Thank you, Zamira. Thanks for that information about yourself and also that observation that is quite true. The non-academic sector is difficult to break into, and that's where I think networking really helped me. So one of the first things I did was to do some consultancy on a voluntary basis for an organization that I really felt shared my values of helping young people succeed. So I first started doing that while I was an academic. And yeah, these side jobs, sometimes they can be, that's another thing about side jobs, is you can get burnt out. So it was a lot of work for me to do both of my jobs at the same time. But from that organization, once I left academia, they were able to, I applied for a job with that organization so I could just stay there. I didn't get that job, but the CEO of that organization recommended me to another job, which was a director of research job for another organization. So I then applied for that. But also I had applied for associate director of research for another organization, which was third sector in London. And that guy offered me a feedback interview, like a feedback session. So I went to the feedback when I didn't get the job. I was shortlisted and interviewed it, and he loved me. He said, you were fantastic, and then he recommended me for another job. So I didn't end up taking that other job just because it didn't align with my values. And honestly, I felt like all the board of director, like all the executive in that job were all white middle class, and I felt like I was gonna experience another kind of issue with the way that I wanted to work. Let's say, I'm trying to be diplomatic here. So I think networking was the way that I got all of those triangulation of jobs, and they started to tell people, hey, Luna's really good at such and such. And the more that I interviewed, the more that I realized what kind of language they're looking for. And the more that I realized that researching their vision statements of an organization that you want to work in, finding out the language that they use in those vision statements, in those reports. They'll have a strategy 2030 or something like this. Read those, find out what their values are, and see if they align with yours, but find out how they say the same skills that you have, but maybe they say them in a different way. And also they might have impact reports, same thing. One of the organizations I wanted to apply for, I read their impact report, and it didn't resonate with me. I felt like it was condescending to the populations that I work with in the community. So again, that was information that I needed to know. That saved me from applying for that job. And that's another thing, is that applying for jobs really wears you out. So being really clear and doing that self-reflective work that I talked about is even more important, because you want to guard yourself from applying to everything that seems like it's within your skill level. So I hope that helps, Amira. Thank you. So that's waiting. Okay, this one, it segues really nicely. So thank you, Samira. So the next thing is translating your skills. What I see people do most often, and my clients do is, and I did for real, was translate my skills for every job that I saw that was at all. So not only the director of research positions that I applied to, I also applied for program manager positions. I also applied for, see if I remember, head of EDI positions, equality, diversity, and inclusion, that is. I applied for director positions of think tanks. I applied for director positions of climate change organizations. There were things that just aligned with my values, or things that aligned in some ways with the work that I'd been doing within the university that I thought I could just slot in, and in some respects I could have, but I really needed to be clear on whether I was solely looking for EDI jobs, right? And really looking at that kind of social justice perspective, or was I solely looking at education jobs? So some of the ones I applied for were education, or was I solely, it was having something where your LinkedIn profile tells the story of one thing that you offer. And that's one thing that, of course, I learned in starting my own business, because once I learned about market research and about branding and about, giving a clear message to your ideal client, that actually opened the door to the way that you write grant application. I then started to see these links of like, oh, I see what these all mean. You're selling an idea that you're the person that's going to deliver that, and only you, because you might have skills that are very similar to somebody else. So if you're in law, then you have very good critical analysis skills, critical thinking skills, right? And you might have good writing skills, and you might have, applying for funding perhaps. But, and other people have that, right? So other university lecturers are going to come to the field with those same things. But what do you have that's unique? What have you done within the university that you've maybe volunteered to do, or you've taken on leadership positions? And how did you implement those leadership positions? Because I bet it wasn't the same way as, my white male partner would do them. I don't lead in the same way that he does. So I want to bring that to the table as a strength, because a lot of times in academia, we are gaslit to be told that what our values are limitations, when a lot of industry would see those things as assets. So I think you need to reevaluate, again, have a board meeting with yourself, go back to what are the things that I really care about, what brought me into my job, and what can I re-own, and take back control and say, no, that was a strength. So one of the things I did was I worked for the union, and I did fundraising for the union. I did activism. I did many, many speeches to hundreds of people, and I got them to donate money based on my speeches. That is something that I never would have put on the CV because it was part of the union, so it's not part of my senior lecturer position or my university lecturer position, job description. But now that I'm out, I can use that, depending on what job I'm applying to. So I think those are strengths, and I can go back to some of the things that I've done before. I developed coaching programs within the university. I can show other universities how to do that. That's a consultancy job right there. Right, so that's translating your skills. So I don't want to see you just translating your skills with the same language as everybody else. I want to see, a little bit of authentic you. Now, of course, there's ways to do that, and that's where a coach can help, where you're talking to your friends or doing informational interviews with people who are already in those jobs. Another tip is go on LinkedIn and find the people who are doing the job that you want to do within an industry and look at their about section or where they talk about what their job role is. Use that same language. Okay. Next thing, use the same network. So that's a pitfall, is using your same networks. Your same networks are your university people, right? You probably have a lot of friends who are your colleagues. They are going to warn you. I don't know how many, horror stories I heard about people starting their own business before I started mine. Oh, I know this person who tried to start their own business. Now they're back in academia. Oh, I know this person who tried to offer a course outside of academia, and now they're back, or somebody started a side business and they couldn't make it work. So, just those warnings. Of course, they're not doing it maliciously. They're, they really care about you. But the thing is that they're not going to understand your pivot. And you are the one that has the vision towards this future. You need to own it. And you need to not worry about, they're not on that path, right? They're watching from the sidelines. You are marching ahead on your path, that you have a vision in front of you of what you want. You want, joy. You want creativity. You want community and a collective way of working instead of this kind of, competitive way of working that you've maybe had in academia. You have a vision of what you want. The people that are still in academia, of course, aren't on that path. They're still looking for a way to be okay with their position. They're not on this path. They can't imagine what you're imagining in front of you. And maybe you're imagining something completely new. So you're creating maybe your own business, or you want to, find an industry that is something that nobody, other people haven't really heard of. Maybe it's a startup that you'd like to go into and have, a say in the groundswell of it. Well, there's other people that can't imagine that. That's not your typical, oh, I got this degree, this certificate. It slots really nicely into this tiny, this hole in this kind of way. You're creating something new. You need to go ahead and imagine it. And, you almost have faith and know that it's there and that you're able to create it because you created something else from scratch. You created your university lecture. You went through the school system. You went to university. You did the whole thing. You have faith. You have motivation. You have expertise. You have experience galore. You have all the degrees. I know you do. So, have faith. You know where it's going, and don't listen to people on the sidelines. So, and in some ways, you need to build your own new network. People who are on that same journey. I only recently joined a women entrepreneur group, and to hear them speak is so much different from the people who were saying, "Oh, but Luna, only take a job where where you're going to be able to use your PhD, like where it needs a PhD to get into it, because then how are you going to go back to it? You're going to have regret." It's difficult. I think sometimes people say, don't tell your friends what you're planning to do until you've actually started to do it. I don't know. I mean, I told my friends, but there is something to that. And I think the other thing is when you create your new network, you are creating a new identity. And I think that's one of the things that held me back in the beginning, was being okay with, people saying, "Oh, you left your university. What are you doing now?" And being okay with saying, "Oh, I'm going to start my own, but I'm going to be a coach. I am a coach." Like, it was hard to say I am a coach when I hadn't coached anybody yet, if that makes sense. And there's something legitimate sometimes to doing a course or doing a certificate or being accredited or having a website even where you're like, or a business card where you're like, "I'm a coach," because you have this thing that gives it legitimacy. No, you can be the thing that you are. Just say that you are. Have the network that all recognize that that's who you are, right? And that's what a new network kind of creates, is that you are now joining a new identity. And sometimes leaving the old identity behind can be really, really difficult, because a lot of people said, like, "I'm an academic," or "being an academic is my personality," and that's no longer, there. So that's using the same network. So you want to build a new network. Another pitfall is using your academic profile as your brand. Again, you need to find what your unique selling point is and be able to brand yourself with that. And I don't mean like, you have to be Coca-Cola, or you have to say like, "Just do it," or blah, blah, blah. But I mean, there is something authentic to you that you've probably learned a lot about yourself and what you value while you've been in academia. I know I learned a lot by being told, like, "Luna, stop doing that." And I'm like, but I still want to do that. Am I just rebellious, or do I actually care about it? I'm probably a little bit of both. But, there is something valuable to listening to what were the experiences that I had in academia and what did I choose to do. And that choice was a reflection of my priorities. And what you need to do now is yourself needs to be one of your priorities. You need to choose yourself more often now, because if you've been putting yourself on the back burner while you've been giving your all to the university, where are you in that? You need to be able to choose yourself as your priority. And doing, maybe making a shift, making a pivot is a way to choose yourself. So yes, you need a new branding. You need to be able to release the fact that you are an academic and that you want that to bring legitimacy into the industry that you want to go into. And they might not care about that, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to hide who you are, but you have to be comfortable entering a new identity. And creating your own brand profile that's separate from being an academic is one way to do that. Okay, and then number 7, I mean, it's kind of related to the other ones, is waiting until you're ready. I hear that a lot, like waiting until I'm just not ready. I'm just going to wait till the semester is over, and then I'll pivot. And again, I think, give yourself grace. Maybe you do need that time to kind of recover from one thing to another. But also just have a conversation with yourself. Is time really going to make things different? Is doing the same thing and living the status quo going to result in something different? Probably not. But if you could be pivoting now and creating your new network, creating your new identity, going out there and cultivating a new level of confidence, that's going to give you joy. And that, I want you to define your 2022, or if you're looking to pivot in 2023, define your 2022 or 2023 by a word. what do you want that year to be like? For me, I couldn't do one word. It was two. More like joy and creativity. Those are two things that I want more of in 2022, is more joy and more creativity. I know that I felt like, research is kind of creative, but it's really not. There was a lot of creativity I had to leave behind, and I want that back. I reclaim that. That's what I want you to have for 2022, at least for you guys, reclaiming more of your time, reclaiming more of your commitment, reclaiming more of your priorities in terms of yourself, and owning your strengths and being able to highlight them to a new career. So probably didn't say what I offer, but I'm a career coach, and I help academics and other high achievers to shift their career towards something more meaningful, more fulfillment, rediscovering their skills, redefining their worth, and having less stress in their life, less regret. So those are the types of things that I offer. You can find me on Facebook. I have a page, Luna Leadership. You can find me on my main profile, and I also have a Facebook group called Reach for the Moon with Purpose. And you can go on there. I go live on there as well. I'll have guest speakers on there. I had one on self-acceptance and self-love. She was amazing. She offers retreats in Scotland, in Aberdeen. So yeah, look for her old live on my Facebook group. And yeah, I hope to see you there and on here on LinkedIn. And I usually like to rage tweet on Twitter as well, and talk about injustices. So if you want to connect on there and see me rage, then do find me on there as well. But yeah, it was great to see you guys, and thanks for participating. And do let me know if there's any other topics that you'd find useful, any little pieces that I talked about tonight that you'd like me to go a little bit more in depth on. But yeah, it's great to connect, and good night, everybody.